starting with our mayor, Kathy Sheehan, who has not missed a single event I've done in 2.5 years or 2 years. Bill Keeler, the city of Cohoes. We've had a chance to tour and see some wonderful things with the DRI. Ron Kim, mayor of Saratoga Springs. We've been up there many times. And, of course, City of Troy, Patrick Madden, where I frequent these Saturday markets. So you're all my friends. I see you often, many in your communities. Also have our District Attorney Bob Carney from Schenectady County. Thank you for joining us. Acting Superintendent Steve Nigrelli and all of our friends in law enforcement. I thank them for their leadership in protecting the state of New York. Brian Girolamo, I'm going to get it right. Brian, help me out here. Girolamo. I got it. Okay, there we go. Special agent in charge of the New York Field Division of ATF and other partners in government who've joined us. Glad to be back at the New York State Police Academy. I spent a lot of time here. I also am very privileged to speak at the graduation ceremonies when there's a big sigh of relief on those young people's faces as they finally get through their 6 months of intensive training. So next year we're going to be going from 2 graduations a year to 4, so I'll be very busy with that. But as I've stated from day one as governor, my #1 priority is protecting New Yorkers, keeping them safe. And I'm here to give an update on our progress on combating gun violence across New York. And I'm really proud to stand up here today and say that the numbers are extraordinary. The incidences of gun violence are going down, and a lot of that has to do with the confiscation of illegal guns. And that is all despite 1 year ago this week, the Supreme Court's decision to make our state more dangerous and take away the rights of a governor to protect her people from concealed carry weapons. It was a reckless and shocking decision, again, striking down a century-old law that is just still hard to comprehend. The Supreme Court, one of our most previously revered institutions, seemed hell-bent on sending us backwards at a time when crime was rising, and we're doing everything we can, and law enforcement is working so hard every single day. And to have a Supreme Court that is hostile to those interests was indeed shocking just a year ago. And so we put millions of people in harm's way with this change in the law. And after the Bruin decision, again, it will go down in infamy. It's named after our former superintendent. The Bruin, we had to take matters into our own hands. We could not let the status quo rest. And we said we're not going to surrender to this reality. We're never going to cede our rights to people. And we understood truly what was a moral imperative to act at that time. So I called the legislature back into session. I pushed for new common sense concealed carry laws, which were passed and went into effect on September 1. We strengthened background checks and required training. We banned concealed carry holders from sensitive locations. And over the last year, we've also been able to uphold the rights of lawful gun owners while getting illegal guns off the streets, keeping guns away from dangerous people, and most importantly, bringing down the shootings. So that effort, I just left a meeting of the members of the Interstate Task Force on Illegal Guns. You know, I announced this 6 months into the job as governor a year and a half ago, January of 2022. That includes the state police, local law enforcement from across the state of New York, but most importantly, and the first time ever, we had law enforcement representatives from 13 states, as well as NYPD, Boston PD, Quebec, and the ATF. We formed it before when violence was just raging around the state. As I said, it's the first of the kind in the nation. I spoke with ATF Director Steve Dettelbeck. He called this task force a national model that other regions around the state should follow. So I recently invited 3 more states to join us. In the dark blue, you see Maine, Maryland, and Delaware have recently joined the task force. So you look at the corridor that we have, that key I-95 corridor where so many of the illegal guns flow back and forth. And because I-95 cuts through each of these states, having them on board is really important. That iron pipeline that people talk about. Now we have a coordinated effort where people are sharing information in real time, and that was not happening before. So we're going to continue disrupting those flows of guns. And this task force, I said a year ago when I introduced it, I said, our strength is in numbers. The more we build together a team of people working together in real time, the stronger we are against the criminals. And also leveraging the most sophisticated technology that we can. Gathering the best minds in law enforcement and public policy, and also doing something that's critically important, connecting the dots before a tragedy happens. So a year and a half later, we're seeing some strong results. In a moment, we'll go over some of those statistics on gun seizures. But at this point, I want to talk about something that happened just Friday. 4 days ago, State Trooper Richard Albert was patrolling I-88 in Duanesburg when he spotted a car traveling more than 100 miles an hour. He pulled the car over, and as he approached, a man stuck a gun out the window and fired, hitting him in the arm. Thankfully, Trooper Albert, who I spoke to, is okay and in full recovery. But again, this is something we learned about literally sitting at the funeral for another trooper. Superintendent and I were together. And he gets a message last Friday while we were up in Plattsburgh at the funeral of Captain Garrison, who lost his life at age 47 to illnesses he contracted from serving at the site of 9/11. So while we're going through this experience, Superintendent gets a text sitting next to me that another trooper has been shot. So thank God he's okay, but I wanted everyone to see this as a sober reminder of all the dangers faced by those in law enforcement every single day. And they show up for work, they answer the call. And I want to thank Trooper Albert and thousands like him for showing up the way they do. But also underscores the importance of this task force. On this table are examples of the illegal guns that have been seized by this task force, including the exact same gun that was used to shoot Trooper Albert, as witnessed here. It's a 9mm handgun. It has 12 rounds of ammunition. And the picture on the screen is the actual gun that was used. Because it's part of an ongoing investigation, we couldn't have it here today, but just imagine the terror in anyone's eyes when they see that gun and still having the courage to stay there and fire back, trying to eliminate the threat. So it's extraordinary what a member of our team just went through just a few days ago. It's these types of investigations that it's important we have access to the information. Thank you, Superintendent. That's why we've made record investments in a network of 10 crime analysis centers across the state, including the one right here in Albany that I toured last January. With record funding, we've upgraded these facilities with the most sophisticated ballistic tracking technology. And what this does is it links information that we have to our federal agencies like ATF and what they're using. That means one thing that's so important. We can process shell casings and check for matches and other crimes faster than ever before. And what used to take a month to do now can be accomplished in 24 to 48 hours. And that's what's going on with that gun as we speak. We know that this gun was purchased legally in Pennsylvania and brought to New York illegally. And another indicator of our success is not just what you see on the table, but also our most recent statistics on gun seizures. Let's focus on 3 buckets, 3 different places where the guns are being confiscated. First of all, illegal guns seized directly by state police, and guns seized statewide, and those seized through New York State's red flag law, which you've heard me speak about. Let me just talk about what's going on across the state and how it's impacting shootings in New York State and in New York City. Statewide illegal gun seizures are at historic levels. 10,000 up from just 2018 over almost 7,000. Dramatic increase in historic seizures. Now, what I have said, I knew the power of the state police from my time as lieutenant governor. I've been very involved with this. And I knew that we could do even more in the role that we play and to do more policing and to do more direct confiscation of guns. So last year, across New York, all police departments seized over 10,500 illegal firearms. Pre-pandemic, that number was 6,400, a 66% increase. And also this Interstate Task Force, this is Interstate, this is within our state. We have totally redefined the role of state police in the battle to get guns off the streets. We have the ability to share information. We can get data in real time, and we're starting to do that as well. So let's look at the state police themselves, what they have accomplished. They went from seizing 517 illegal guns in 2020. And when I became governor and I said, I know we can do more, these are individuals who are on our highways, they know the signs, they see the vehicles coming up from places like Pennsylvania. We can track people at gun shows, watching someone load illegal guns into a trunk and heading up Route 81, and we know exactly where they're going. They're either heading up to Syracuse or they're making a hard right and they're heading into the Bronx, and that's exactly what was happening. And now we went from 517 guns in 2020 because of this intentional effort to 1,429 in 2022, almost 3 times as many. And in the first half of 2023, you can see from the graph here, we're already outpacing last year's effort. So through May of this year, state police have already confiscated 592, and last year, the entire year, was 580. So you can see what path we're on to really increase those numbers. Again, 154% increase from back when the number was 233. But the state police's impact is being felt beyond New York. They're seizing guns from people coming here from other states. They have made referrals in 225 cases, most frequently Pennsylvania. So data we're getting is being shared to prosecute crimes in other states as well. So it goes both ways. That while we have 10,000 guns off the streets, it's great progress. It's not the entire story. More work needs to be done, and we didn't stop there either. So last year, in the wake of the tragic Tops shooting in my hometown, we took a close look at our red flag protection law. It was not being used. I knew it could be better, it could be stronger. So the legislature, we brought them back. We told them, 4 days after the shooting, I signed an executive order requiring state police, now that's the operative word, requiring state police to file an extreme risk protection order, or ERPO, whenever they have probable cause to believe that someone could do harm to themselves or to others. That was a dramatic shift in putting the responsibility on state police to actually use this law that had been on the books. I also pushed some changes into the law. A month later, I signed another package of legislation to bolster our red flag laws. And also we have now the same requirement for not just state police, but all police and our district attorneys, and made it possible for medical providers and health providers and educators to all be able to have access to file. When they see the signs, again, in a classroom, in a hospital emergency room, you know things, you see things, you hear things. And to be able to now have a way to act upon it where you're taking that information you're receiving from an individual and able put in the hands of an individual law enforcement who can take action, that is how we're making a profound difference. And we also want to make sure that mental health reports are looked at closely before issuing a firearm license. As part of the background check, this is something I did as a county clerk for many years. So you get all kinds of data coming in, background checks, mental health checks. I want those mental health reports viewed seriously. What is in there instead of just making it pro forma. Those changes have made a dramatic difference. Here's the information. Between 2019 and April of 2022, 1,400 ERPOs were filed. Since I signed the executive order last May, there have now been 8,778. That's a 612% increase. 1 year. Look at the difference that has made. And of those, these are statewide, and I thank all of our local law enforcement partners. State police themselves did 743, and what that resulted in was 1,400 guns being confiscated. That's almost 2 guns per order of protection. You can extrapolate that from all the other policing agencies. We don't have the data directly, but I know what the state police did, and we know that the number is dramatically higher statewide. So just accounting for the state police, which is a fraction of the total number, these are hundreds of people who had displayed signs, just like we've seen in mass shootings and other people who telegraph on social media or to other people that they're going to do something wrong and harmful. And so many times have we looked back and says, I wish we had seen the signs. They were out there, but no one brought it all together. No one connected the dots. That's what we're doing here, and it's been successful. So we prevented people from causing harm to others, the tragedies we prevented. You'll never know them. You'll never know. Like there's never a story about the plane that lands safely. We're landing a lot of planes safely right here, my friends. And I just said, I've always said, I don't want to be in the crime-solving business. I want to be in the crime prevention business. That's what's going on with the strength and red flag law. So we're having a concrete impact on violent crime, fewer shootings, the shootings are down 15% outside of New York City. You can see the bump there where it definitely went up during the pandemic, and now we're trending in the direction. Again, just as a context, look where we were in 1993. That was a scary time, and it dropped, continued to drop. Only the pandemic created a spike, and now we're sending it back down again. Even in New York City, the numbers are even better. They're down 17% since 2021. So fewer shootings means fewer murders. Murder rate is down 10% in New York City and New York State, and it's going down faster in New York, going down in New York faster than any other state. Full stop. That's something to be proud of. It's because we're making more arrests, more convictions in firearm cases. That's the direct correlation. And conviction rates for felony firearm cases are now back to pre-COVID levels. They're back to 50% in New York City and 70% outside of New York City. So we have reason to believe that the 2022 numbers, which are the most recent we have, are not a fluke. We can look at the first half of 2023 and know that we're doing something right, and I think that's quite amazing. Shootings are down, back down to pre-pandemic levels, and shootings are down 26% in New York City. So these are good numbers, my friends, because it wasn't that long ago we were sitting here watching these numbers creep up and up and up, and we never knew. Are we heading into that 1990s world, which was so terrifying for people living particularly in our urban areas? But we've reversed it. We're downward, and that is the right direction. So shootings per day are far lower, again, approaching the pandemic levels, and this is all very positive. It's not enough. We have to keep up the investments, keep up the commitment, and that is why our state budget, and I thank the leaders of the legislature for supporting my efforts to really beef up our efforts to invest in public safety and policing. $337 million for programs to respond to and drive down gun violence holistically. And I'm announcing that we had $36 million for gun-involved violence elimination. We call it GIVE. That's 6 times more than we ever had. Now, last year we were talking about tripling it. This time we now have 6 times as much as we had at the time. 8 new departments. Will now be 28 departments. They'll be active in many more places. So it's all about giving the local communities the resources they need as well. I've been in the streets in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, the major cities, the smaller communities. They are all struggling. And I want them to know that in situations where things are really difficult, like we saw in Rochester and Syracuse last summer in particular, we were on the ground. We literally have state police patrolling with them. We have all the technology that they've asked for. We're there to help them as well, because sometimes it's very overwhelming for local governments, and I want them to know they have a strong partner in our state government. So we're going to continue all of our outreach, our hotspots policing, and I will continue doing whatever is necessary. So again, I want to thank the men and women in the room next door who have gathered. They've come from other states. They are here for the 6th time at my request to gather, share ideas, share information on cases, and together we will get ahead of the criminals and let the message be out there. This is a state where we protect our people. We take this responsibility deadly seriously. So be aware. You come to our state, or you live in our state, you want to harm someone with a gun, there will be consequences. You will be caught, you'll be prosecuted, and you'll be incarcerated. And I want to thank again the state police for all the work they've done. More guns off the street, more extreme risk protection orders. And in that sense, we are saving people's lives. So we're not settling for these numbers. Don't take from this that I'm satisfied, because I know we can continue, but we are making great progress. And I want to thank everyone involved, our local government officials, our district attorneys, our policing agencies, and all those who are true public servants committed to the common objective that we share, which is to protect the people of the state of New York. So with that, I want to say thank you, and I'll bring up an individual who is going to share more information. Brian DiGirolamo. Am I close enough, Brian?
Close enough.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, let me try it again. DiGirolamo. DiGirolamo. Okay, good. All right, there, got it. And I want to thank him. He's the Assistant Special Agent at ATF to talk about the work that he is doing as well. Thank you, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. The governor's laid out what we're doing here at Interstate Task Force, but it starts with what we've done within New York State. All right, I want to thank her for her steadfast commitment in addressing violent crime throughout the state. She played a critical role in supporting the development of a unified violent crime reduction strategy here in New York. Would you believe that there is not a unified violent crime strategy throughout the nation? We're doing it here in New York. It started in ATF, New York, partnered up with the New York NYPD in collaborating, optimizing, trace data, NIBIN information, and bringing the units together. The governor embraced this concept and has provided support for us for it to be expanded throughout the state so all the communities can benefit from what we've learned. Here in New York State Police, we've worked closely with them. They've been one of our greatest partners. We developed a violent crime or joint firearms task force with them in which we're trying to identify and interdict and disrupt firearms trafficking into the state. We've also linked our crime gun intelligence center with the NYSIG, with their intelligence center, and sharing the information, bringing together federal data and optimizing it with local data to identify the traffickers. We've also partnered up with the Division of Criminal Justice Services. Again, like we've done with the state police, we've connected our crime gun intelligence center with each one of the crime analysis centers spread out throughout the state. The concept is to get the data and the information to the lowest level so that we can address this on a street level. The governor's allocated funding put NIBIN machines in here, so we're able to match ballistics from crime scenes, connecting crime scenes, giving these resources to the local police. As she mentioned earlier, the results would have been months long. Now, believe it or not, Governor, I don't know if you're aware of this, we have them back in hours. So from when we make a submission into the system, we're able to get that information within hours to get to the investigators. So those investigators have a lead, a very viable lead that we can work with. What does this mean for us in New York State? What we've been able to do with these partnerships with the New York State Police and the Division of Criminal Justice Services is really reduce the time in which we get this data, okay? Completing the trace. With the state police, we were able to connect all the crime guns that are recovered directly with the National Tracing Center, in which it's a direct feed from information, which is a leap in what it used to be. It used to be us collecting it and data entering it. Now it's just a computer switch and the data's there. That information's coming back quicker than before. We're also utilizing this trace data and, of course, merging with the local data to identify and disrupt firearms traffickers. This gives our state, local, and federal partners critical information in a timely manner to address the violent crime happening throughout the state. The collaboration among law enforcement, the optimization of data collection, processing, and dissemination has resulted in a one-of-a-kind initiative that is getting nationwide attention. I want to thank the efforts of the governor, her staff, and all law enforcement agencies that have contributed, because now we become the model for the rest of the nation in developing a unified violent crime reduction strategy. We're one of the first states in the nation to do this. They're coming to us, and we're doing this because all law enforcement is collaborating, and we have a governor who cares. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the governor will take a few questions.
All right. Hazel?
Raise hands so I can see them in the back. Any questions? Yeah, Grace, go ahead.
Hi, Governor.
Grace.
Good to see you. Governor, members of your staff told Assembly Member Harry Bronson and representatives of the Housing and Gaming Trades Council that they'd signed NDAs forbidding them from discussing details of the Seneca Compact negotiation. Were you aware of any NDAs? And separately, are you aware of any report that sort of undermines the importance of the siting of the new casino in Rochester?
No, I was recused from all those proceedings.
But about on the NDAs, would your staff have signed the NDAs?
That would be something they would have done independent of my awareness because I was recused from the negotiations.
Any on topics on gun numbers? Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Governor. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Are there any specific cities especially within the capital region, that your office and the agencies you work with are turning their attention to this summer?
Well, we've added more communities to what we call the GIVE jurisdictions, the gun-involved violence elimination communities. We increased it to 28. I know City of Albany is certainly on that list, but I don't know, are you referring to Troy, Schenectady?
Yes, those as well, Saratoga Springs.
Saratoga Springs. I don't know if we added any of those to the list. They're already on the list. Yes. So no, we're going to continue partnering with the data you talked about here, and the elected leaders know if they run into a difficult situation, a hot spot, or something that they need extra reinforcements for, we'll always show up and we'll be there to support them as well.
Any other questions from the press? Kate?
Hi, Governor. I'm curious about there's a push for the legislation Coverage for All Act as Assembly's back to that would expand health care coverage for more New Yorkers, including undocumented immigrants. And I also was curious what your thoughts are on that. Is that something you think that should be done? And is there any update on the migrant situation and any discussion about housing them on the SUNY campuses or response from the federal government?
No, on the migrants, we're still focused on finding large-scale facilities in the New York City area. I'm still waiting for a response on Floyd Bennett Field, for example. I know that they've been successfully integrated into communities like Western New York and Buffalo and into Albany has done an amazing job. Thank you, Mayor. So there's been a lot of welcoming communities. So I think the shift has been realizing that how quickly the summer goes, that if we get into a situation where we can't handle the flow, we can relook at SUNY campuses. But that was part of my effort months ago to just say, let's get a survey of all state lands, everything that we have control over, whether it was SUNY campuses, whether it was abandoned prison facilities, psychiatric hospitals. We are just desperately looking for any place we can get a parking lot or a place to put up a tent. So that was part of that effort. It was not saying that they're definitely going to SUNY campuses. It was always part of a survey of available lands. And as far as undocumented coverage, healthcare coverage, I don't know if this is widely known, but last year I did expand it to mothers, postpartum mothers, for the first year of a child's life because they were not covered. They're cut off as soon as the baby is born, as well as to seniors. So undocumented seniors have a disadvantage. The federal government has told us that we cannot use the trust fund money that's available, that is in surplus right now. We cannot use that for undocumented individuals. So we've been having conversations, but I know the Assembly's looking at it. I also have to be cognizant of the extraordinary costs that would be imposed on New York State taxpayers at a time when the warnings about our finances are troubling. And we saw a reduction of $6 billion in the month of March from our normal tax receipts. So we cannot ignore those. We have to make sure that we manage our finances as well. But I did expand in those two categories of people a year ago.
Soon.
So the Assembly, either today or tomorrow, they're expected to take up a bill that would bar the release of radioactive water into the Hudson River, and that's part of the Indian Point nuclear plant decommissioning. Would you be supportive of that bill if it gets to your desk?
Like all 839 to date, but probably approaching 1,000 bills, I'll be looking at all bills very closely with my team and analyzing them and doing the right thing.
Okay, last question, John in the back.
Governor, you have hundreds, like you just said, more than 800 bills coming to your desk. Last year, you negotiated chapter amendments for about 100 bills. Is that how you prefer to negotiate legislation, or would you rather be brought into the process before it's even passed?
No, we sent a message out, especially when our teams were engaged in the waning hours of New Year's Eve last year because of the complication and the volume of bills. I have to read every single one, get an analysis from my legal team, talk about the pros and cons. Now, can we afford this idea? Many of them are expensive outside the budget. So, the ideal process is to engage before it gets to a point where you are chaptering, which is basically a fancy way of saying amending. But the legislature has their traditions, and 500 bills in the last week, that was a very high volume, and I don't remember being asked about 500 bills in the last week, so I'll simply say that method works for the legislature. That is what they do, but now it is upon me to give more thoughtful analysis from my end to make sure that I'm making decisions that are the best for the entire state of New York, not just individual areas.
All right, thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone. Appreciate you coming.